You could have a team of 5 or a team of 30, or even for me, like I've had team 100 plus, and there will be somebody that is just like, woo-wee, woo-wee, Jesus help me. Jesus take the wheel. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. This is your one-stop shop to learn the business side of your practice on a deeper level. On this show, we empower you to own your CEO status to scale your practice for growth, sustainability, and profit. Listen in as we talk about how to market your practice to gain more visibility, hire, build, and engage your ride or die dream team, create streamlined operations, and make financial decisions as a CEO. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm excited for today's conversation because it's a reflection story. So I push out a lot of information when it comes to private practice, and it's not hard for me to sit down and think about business and leadership tips or stories that I have. And I do that in a number of different ways. So one of the ways is through email. And I sent out an email for when I fired my whole team. And I'm surprised I haven't talked about this before. But I got some responses back like, thank you so much for this email. This was a great email. And because it resonated so much, I thought I would actually talk about it in just my experience and verbal way so I can paint some color and give you some additional tips to help you if you're in this situation. But I literally had a team of 30 plus at the time, a mixture of coordinators, leads, clinical team, admin team, providers, and I was tired. I was so tired. I had specifically been put in this position to merge two practices together, two practices that had two different business cultures, doing things completely different. And so my job was to engage the team, make sure the practice was profitable, make sure operations were streamlined, make sure business culture made sense, made sure that the providers were happy, and making sure that we were doing everything that we needed to do for patient care, all the stuff. And I hated my team. I mean, this bunch. Oh my. I was put through some things, and looking back, I can see why I was put through some things. Even looking back on my whole career, like where I've landed talking to you, I can see why I've been put through certain challenges and certain things have happened to me because I wouldn't have the stories to be able to share with you today. So I remember sitting at my desk, it was after hours, and I'm like, this team is awful. All of them. And I merged two teams together. There was a handful of people that I liked, a handful of people that had the qualities that I needed in order to get the job done for profitability, sustainability, growing, making sure patient care was on point, like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, who's going to go? Who is going to go today? Because the shenanigans were driving me crazy. The shenanigans of call outs. I can't rely on you to come to work today. The shenanigans of I gave you an assignment. You haven't done it yet. Providers, the documentation's late. I mean, come on now. From admin team, mistakes with scheduling, the billing team. I mean, every single department that is in or type of person position that is in a practice was a trouble area. All of it. And I was like, you gotta go. You just gotta go. So I sat down and I wrote a list. I had my team roster and I wrote a list of who was going to stay and who was going to go and what was going to be my plan to get them out. I quickly went to policy and procedures. What's a policy? Who's breaking it? What's the procedure? Who's not doing it? And I started from that place because I needed to get very clear on, was it something I was doing from a management leadership perspective? Was it something that was missing? Was there any additional education that I needed to do before I put anybody on the chopping block? And there was maybe a few people where I was like, okay, if we could do a better job of maybe training, we can go back and have some conversations, those types of things. But for the most part, oh, no, it was just pure like ignorance, pure like, I'm just coming to work to get a paycheck today. Like all the stuff that happens in practices that I know happens in practices that we are helping our clients navigate inside of practices, all the stuff. Because when it comes to team, this is the number one frustration. And you need it. Like, you need a team, especially if you were like, "Hey, I wanna have high levels of revenue. I wanna be able to do some amazing things. I wanna be able to help more people." You need a team. And some folks think, "Well, if I don't have multiple providers like the group practice model, then I don't need a team." That's not true. If you have a business model where you're helping a lot of people, you're going to need a team in order to make sure that everyone that you're helping is good. So one way or another, you might not have heavy clinical team, but you could have heavy admin team. So at the end of the day, if you have aspirations to make more money, help more people, have a bigger business, then you need to get comfortable with this team conversation. And if you are in a place where you know, hey, I need to hire, I am drowning in some of my work, then you need to get comfortable with this team conversation, because the team dynamic can make you or it can break you, especially when it comes to a practice, and especially when it comes to healthcare compliance, especially when it comes to the money piece. And so you have to get comfortable with it. You just have to. There is no freebie when it comes to this. People try to wing it, people try to bypass it, people try to let me kind of use what I already know, but I'm telling you, you're going to get to a place where all the tricks and tools and things you got, they will challenge you. And you could have a team of 5 or a team of 30, or even for me, like I've had team 100 plus, and there will be somebody that is just like, "Woo-wee, woo-wee, Jesus help me. Jesus, take the wheel, because you're challenging me. You're making it hard for me." And so at the end of the day, when it comes to team, the point of this conversation and the point of the email that I sent out is I wanted to give you permission that you don't have to settle for the shenanigans. You don't have to sit up there and put up with stupidness. You don't have to sit up there and put up with ridiculousness. You can come from a place of empowerment when it comes to how you're handling your team, how you partner with your team, how you're engaging your team, all of it. But if they're not cutting it and you've poured so much into it, cut them. Like, this is your permission to fire them. Now, here's my disclaimer. You have labor laws, you have state labor laws. I'm not trying to have anybody end up in a lawsuit or paying unemployment, so you need to follow your due diligence for sure. If you need an HR partner, please have one, but you don't have to sit up there and be like, "Oh, it's okay. Oh, let me just keep paying them." No, if they're not doing what you need for them to do, change it, change it. And so this journey was for me. So by the time I had this is my A player list, and this is my, I'm going to just say F player list, because they were Fs, they were all Fs. What's the plan to get them out? So by the time I was done, the email subject line was, "I fired everyone in my business." And that's exactly what I did. I had 3 people. I had 3 people left. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking like, "Man, that was crazy." I don't recommend for anyone to do this all at one time, but that's what I did. I mean, I was just, no, no. And I remember I specifically, it was a clinical staff member. She clocked in, went and got a whole breakfast, like a whole breakfast, and left the practice to go get breakfast. Clocked in though, so she's on my dime. It wasn't even working. And I came back because I saw her. So I came back into the office and looked specifically, was she clocked in? Yes, she was clocked in. So she was stealing company time, like all this stuff. So these are the types of things I was putting up with. So I was tired. So I was like, she's got to go. You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. And so my plan was order, because I had to make sure I did this responsibly, just like I'm telling you to do it responsibly. But I also did it fearlessly, because I knew it would be easier if I just started over, if I just burned it down and built it back up, compared to just sitting here in the craziness that I was doing. So, policy and procedures was the opportunity. If you are breaking stuff, then I start writing people up. Writing people up. People were getting verbal emails, like verbal warning emails, not even a conversation. This is your notification of a verbal warning through an email. If they were doing anything, writing them up. If final warning, like going through. And so by the time we finished, told you I had 3 people, 3 people. So at that point in time, I needed to rebuild the team. I had to rebuild my admin team. I had to rebuild my clinical team. We ended up moving providers to different places. And so it was interesting, but it was so necessary. And so when I think about the term short staffed, because some people are like, "I don't have enough team." Okay, cool. Well, what can you do to get more team? But you want the right people. And so there's a couple things that I did to make sure that I didn't end up in this situation again because I didn't want to, and that going forward, I was set up for success. And so when I talk about owning your CO status, this is what I mean, right? Like you own your CO status, you're having the difficult conversations, you're saying, "Hey, I'm not settling." And because you own the business, this is your business. So if you're walking into a place that you hate to work every day, that's on you. That's your fault. And not to be mean, not to be rude, but at the end of the day, it's your company. And so anything that's happening within your company, within your four walls, whether it's virtual or brick and mortar, that's what you're allowing to happen. You have no one else to blame. No one else to blame. And so at the end of the day, this is about finding the control that you have and finding the ability to take the reins and to lead from a place of empowerment and not lead from a place of like, oh no, I'm afraid if I talk to this person's going to leave. So what? So what? And that's the place that I got to. I don't care. I do not care if you leave. I do not care if I fire you. You are gone. So during this process, I fired people. Some people quit because they saw the writing on the wall. And it was amazing. So when we got down to the core team, the team that I knew, the first thing I did was made sure that we had some type of coverage. It wasn't the desired coverage that I wanted, but it was just a warm body, and I was settling for that warm body because I needed the warm body, and the warm body that I got was better than the warm body that I had prior. So here are 5 things that I did, so write them down, especially if you're like, "I hate my team sucks, this is not working for me," then these are your 5 things. This is what you're going to do, and this is what I did. The number 1 was for the areas that I let my team go or that I was short-staffed, which was basically the whole practice. I first started to work with staffing agencies. So what company could I work with in order to get things covered? So this had to do with phones, this had to do with check-in, this had to do with intake, this had to do with, all the little admin stuff, agencies. Like who could help me with these activities? Just to make sure that there's somebody doing something because at the end of the day, this wasn't my team. I was hiring for my core team, for my ride or die dream team. That's where that name comes from. But I needed somebody to help. So I worked with staffing agencies and outside vendors. The wonderful thing with healthcare is there's all kinds of agencies. There's all kind of agencies that you can just like search healthcare staffing agencies and see everything that comes up, right? And so you can get overseas help, you can get in states help. Like there's all kinds of help if you choose to go that route. But that's what I did first. And so this allowed for me to kind of take the edge off. So at least the phone was being answered. At least we had some people to check in or to look at, medical records, like some of that stuff. And I started to realize, like with the team that I had left, I started to pay attention to their characteristics. So this is step 2. I got very clear on why did I have a list of A players? What made them A players? What did I love about them? And that helped me set the tone for the characteristics that were gonna work best when it comes to the practice. So there's 3 things that I always say when it comes to your team, and this is my real life experience speaking. There is the skill set that you need for them to have, so this is like skill set. There is the culture fit that they need to have, and then there are the strengths that they bring to the table. So those 3 things together, when one of those things are off, then that is what makes the position off, or that's what makes something not to gel, right? So whether you're not happy with that person or if that person's not working out inside of a position or maybe that person isn't working inside of the practice as a collective, it's because there's something that is off in those 3 areas. So, skill set, culture fit, and strengths that they bring to the table. Notice I did not say experience because sometimes you do need a more experienced person, but at the end of the day, you could come to me with 20 years of experience and be off when it comes to your skill set, still be off when it comes to your strengths, and not be a good fit for the practice, and I'm not gonna hire you. I don't care. So, those 3 things are so important when it comes to this. So, I got very clear on who was the best fit for the practice and where the practice was going. So, this is why it's so important as a CEO for you to understand where are we headed? Where are we going? What is the mission? What is the vision? Why are we doing what we're doing? You are not just creating a job for yourself. I don't care if you're still in the solo space. If you're looking at yourself, well, I'm just creating a 9 to 5. Okay, cool. Why? Why are you doing that? Like you still need to move towards something, right? And so those are the folks who usually come to me, "I was full, and now I'm not." Well, you didn't pay attention to your mission and your vision, and you didn't understand why you were doing what you're doing, and you didn't know your why. So that did not allow for you to make sure that you were moving the practice in a direction in order to keep your schedules full. So you need to make sure that you're very clear on who is going to be a best fit and that you understand where the practice is going and you stick to it. You do not waver. If you know your North Star, you do not waver. I do not care what you see. I do not care. You cannot waver. You have to stand strong in it. You got to be, courageous, fearless, and just go after what you want. Which brings me to number 3. While you're doing this and while I was going through the craziness of this and my team, I love them because they stayed with me during it. They stayed with me after. And it was truly a ride or die dream team. They stuck through it. They understood. They they were happy in some of because some of the team members were frustrating them. This is where I talk about high performers. They were all high performers. Other high performers love other high performers. They don't like low performers, and middle performers kind of drive them crazy if they're not striving to do better. So at the end of the day, what I did in order to not lose the team that I had left because I needed them, even with all the agencies, everything else, I was not trying to lose these core people. I stayed in close communication with the team members I had left. So I kept them updated. This is what's happening. This is the staffing plan. I've had these interviews. I brought them in on the interviews. So one of the best things that I always talk to are like peer interviews. Don't be the only one, especially if you have good people, like existing people in your team. Don't be the only one who's doing interviews. Please bring your team in because you want to make sure team chemistry is on point. You want to make sure that you can observe some of that, not absorb, but observe some of that and that you can actually see, is this going to make sense? Also, during this process, that candidate is going to let their guard down a bit because they're now officially not talking to the owner or they're not talking to maybe the manager. And it allows for them just to ask the questions that they're dying to ask. Also, it allows for your team to kind of get a gauge for, I don't know, because a lot of times people will say things that they don't think matter, but your team members will pick up on it. So you want to make sure that the team that is interviewing is a solid team. Don't have people who are doing shenanigans help with your interview process. Like you're just asking for, trouble. But you want to make sure if you have a good, strong team that can help with that, then have them help with that. So they helped me with that. So if I liked a person, they helped interview too. And we did it in a very condensed time frame. That's the other thing is you can have a layered interview process where you can interview the person or you might do a phone screening. Some of my managers would help with like phone screenings. And then I would might be the second person, team, third, whatever that stop is. It doesn't necessarily have to be in any specific order but with this, you do wanna make sure that if you are in a place where you need to hire fast, you can condense that schedule. So, for example, in this season, we made sure that if there was a candidate that we thought was gonna be a strong candidate, then we were having them come in, speak with me, speak with the team. The team was ready to speak with them, and we were able to know by the end of that day or within the couple of hours that the interview process would take whether or not we were going to move forward. If we were going to move forward, we acted quick, right? So in seasons like this, it's not wise for you to have like a 3-week interview process. No. How can you condense the schedule in order to make sure that you're able to interview people in a good way, in a solid way, in a way that's going to give you all the information that you need, but to speed it up? The 4th thing is I didn't settle. We did not settle, like, me and the team, we did not settle. I don't care how tired you are, and this sounds really bad, but it's so true. I don't care how tired you are. I don't care how much you want to be like, "Oh my gosh, this sucks." I would rather for you just go ahead and take some days off compared to hiring somebody who is gonna be a short-term fix and a long-term awfulness, like, just bad solution, Band-Aid solution, a makeshift solution because that's not gonna help you. It'll give you some temporary relief, but it's not going to solve for the root of the problem. So remember, do not settle. Do not hire out of desperation, no matter how bad it gets. Take your time, be patient with the process, follow the process, do not waver on the process. And I don't care if you're like, oh, if you're sitting up or trying to talk yourself into a hire, I think that they could be really good at this, but inside of your gut, and there's so many red flags, or your team is saying, well, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good thing to do. then don't do it. Do not do it. You better just pass on by that candidate and have faith and know God's going to send you someone else. Because if I'm telling you, I see it all the time. People will move quick, and I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay, you've already offered that position? Oh, okay, well, good." I'll speak from a place of positivity, but inside I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Just based on my experience. Don't settle. And even during that time, I have a clinical background in addition to my business and leadership background. And so I was like, "Okay, I'll jump in. I can help. I can help. I can retrain and beef up some skills," and, because it was a short-term solution for a long-term gain. So I would rather for you to jump in and do what you need to do to get through this season, so that way you can have the team that you need compared to hiring just a warm body that's just gonna make your life awful. Remember, the whole point of this is for you to have a company and practice that you love. Be patient. I cannot say that enough. Be patient. Number 5, once we had our hires, once we had our team in place, oh, let me tell you, like the team, the 3 people I had left were biting at the bit to go ahead and, "Oh, I can give them work. They're now part of the team." And so I created what I called a hands-off training policy. So the hands off while in training policy was exactly that. They did not count. We had gone this long without without a solid team. So I still continue to have agencies and some of the vendors that I was using continue to cover in order to allow the new folks that we had coming in to have a solid training experience. I did not want them to learn trial by fire. I did not want to turn them off. Because at the end of the day, I did not wanna have to go back through what we just went through, and I needed for them to be solid hires. So, because of that, we made sure we mapped out exactly what they were gonna do starting day 1, starting with the following weeks. If there was anybody that I needed to bring in to help train them, I did that. Like, I made sure that they had an amazing training policy and that they or process and that they were paired for the work that we needed them to do and that they had a good introduction to the practice. During the interview process, I was very honest and told them we are in a place of transition and we're looking for strong people. And we are also looking for people who understand that we're in a place of transition and they're going to bring something to the table. Tell me what you got. So at the end of the day, they knew what they were coming into, but I did not want to ruin it for them to be like, "Oh, I know what I signed up for, but I didn't sign up for this." So you want to be careful when you're in these seasons and you are hiring, bringing team members in, and you recognize, okay, we're in a weird place, we've been short staffed, or this hiring process took a little bit longer than what I anticipated. Don't sit up there and just throw them in or just start giving them stuff or, allow for them to understand what are you building? What's the mission? What's the vision? Let them get to know their teammates. Allow for them to really have a good training process. Now, the sidebar to this, if you do not have that, people are just starting at your practice, there's no training, there's no like training schedule or onboarding or different ways for them to learn their job or that they are just kind of winging it when they start or you think like, "Oh, they've done this before, they should be fine." If that's your motto, I need for you to do better. I mean, I really need for you to do better. Everybody deserves, regardless of their expertise, the opportunity to learn their new place of work because you have to remember they might have expertise, but this is still new for them because they've never worked at your practice before. So they don't know. So at the end of the day, it's important for you to give them the time that they need so that way you can get the most out of this hire and you can truly have your ride or die dream team. So those are your 5 steps. If you need to stop, take a minute and actually write these down or go back and listen to this episode, please do. So number 1, bring in outside help with agencies. Number 2, get very clear on who is the best fit for your practice. Number 3, stay in close communication with your team members as you're going through this process. Number 4, do not settle. Do not settle. Number 5, once you have your hires, make sure they have the best onboarding, training, orientation experience in order to make sure that you keep them in the door once you've worked so hard to get them. So, yeah, so that is that's I fired my whole business, fired my whole team and my business story. And I hope that this is helpful, especially if you were in a place where, my team is putting me through the ringer and I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up to be a manager. I did not sign up to be a leader. I have a business and I am feeling ill equipped when it comes, especially to that team dynamic. Then I would love for you to go ahead and apply for private practice CEO. It is open for enrollment, and there is a really great bonus right now because the amazing clients that we work with, they know they get access to 4 retreats. The program is 6 months, but they get access to 4 retreats because we do a quarterly retreat every quarter. So, for example, at this point in time, I'm actually getting prepared for our New York retreat. So, this weekend, we are meeting in New York and talking all about money and wealth building and how to leverage your practice to definitely make an impact, but also, not be poor or broke. So, I'm excited about that. And so, it's something that we do specifically for our clients. What we are changing is that for starting in Q3, anyone who is part of the program now gets access to 2 retreats. So while you're in the program, those are the retreats you will get access to. One of the main ones is our Own Your CEO Status retreat, which is our 2.5 luxury CEO retreat that is actually happening this year in LA. So it is amazing. It is amazing. So, yeah, so at this point in time, you get access to all 4 if you apply before June 28th. So if you apply after June 28th, if you are now officially applying in Q3, then you get access to 2 retreats and not 4. So the bonus is that you'll continue to get access to the 4 retreats, compared to just automatic access to the 4 retreats versus if you start to apply in Q3, then you'll get access to the retreats while you're working with me. And then of course, one of the questions I always get, well, if I continue to work with you after the program, which you absolutely can and most do, then you'll continue to get access to the retreats. So that's a bonus. Private Practice CEO is an amazing program. We focus on the business side of your practice. We work with owners who have team dynamic, things that they're trying to definitely resolve. We make sure that you have more structure, that you get back more time, that you are set up for success when it comes to the money piece, that you're comfortable when it comes to the money piece, that you have great partners to help you inside of your practice, and that you are truly able to own your CO status and be an empowered leader as you grow and scale your practice. So there's more information about that program inside of the show notes. I highly encourage you to apply, especially if anything from this episode is resonating with you. I would love to see your application today. So I think that is all for today. So I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.